Yeah, I wanted to share a few miracles. uh, yeah, I think. Oh, I gave you a brief update yesterday, but we had a meeting at the book fair with this distributor. Well, they're a publishing company and distribution company based in Colombia, and they have an office in Mexico City, but it was just like so orchestrated. Because we were walking around, and then Greg started talking to someone at that booth, and then while Anna and I were waiting for him, we were standing next to a pillar of that booth, and then we saw this Cristo es, which means Christ is, and that was the logo. So when we saw that, we just started looking at the books, and then they had this beautiful book with a cross on the cover, and so we felt just to go and talk to them. And so they told us, oh yeah, one of the owners is here. So we started talking to him, and he said, yeah, I feel really interested, but actually the decision maker is my sister, so you should come back later today. So we went back, and
she was actually Paula in the morning, which is earlier, and she was like, oh, I think I was looking for you. Later on, but anyway.
Yeah, so we came back in the afternoon, and we met with her, and since the beginning, it was incredible because she started sharing a little bit of her story. And she was basically, the doctors told her mother when she was 1 year old that she was going to die because she had leukemia. And then her mother brought her to the Virgin, and then she overcame leukemia, but then she had polio. So she overcame that, and then she felt that there was a purpose to her life. So she has grown up knowing that there was a purpose to her life. So she started sharing all of this, and then she started also sharing why she created this label within the publications company that is called Christ is. And that was last year. Last year she started that label because after the book fair, she was praying. She was on her way to a meeting and she was praying. She said, Lord, do you like what I do? Do you feel this is aligned with what you want from me? And she went into a meeting, and in the meeting, she heard the person she was meeting with said, she was on the phone and said, yeah, the big boss wants this book everywhere. And and then she said, which book is that? And it was this book that we saw with the cross. And so she immediately got in contact with the translator, with the author, and then they gave her the rights to publish the book. And with that, they felt with the author to start this new label, Christ is. Because it's all about Jesus, Jesus calling, testimonies about Jesus calling people all around the world. And it's only testimonies of that. That's the book. That's what the book is about. So yeah, she just started sharing all of this before we even talked about the books. And then we started sharing about our books, and she started looking at them. And when she looked at them, she said, I feel we have an assignment together. I can feel the urgency of putting these books out available in Spanish. And when she said that, I just started crying because I just felt like she was feeling the same way as I feel. And she was like so inspired. Like, and she started looking at them and saying, okay, I would do this and this. She was like just all activated. And yeah, and then at the end of the meeting, she was like, I was in Chapala this morning. I feel that I was looking for you, but now we're meeting, now we're here. And she's been going to that book fair for 20 years, and she says she's never there during the last few days. It's the first time ever she's there, the last day of the book fair, and she said, I do feel that he brought you to me. I know this is an assignment. And she just wanted to, today she said, I'm going to go there. I want to meet David. She was like, just so, really like so happy. And at the end of the meeting, she said, let's take a picture together. I feel like we're just meeting again. This is, we've met before. And yeah, and I felt it too. Like I felt like I've seen her before, like I've felt her before. So it was just, really, really beautiful. She said that a couple of days before, like 3 days ago, an 11-year-old came to her booth and said, Virgin Mary is talking to me all the time. She's talking to me all the time, and I don't know what to do. And she said, just follow her. Follow her, and she will lead you to Jesus. And at the end, it's all to come back to the Father. That's what she said to this 11-year-old girl. And the girl had an image of the Virgin in her hand and opened her hand and said, this is for you. And she saw that Virgin a few days before, so she felt like, oh, something's coming, like I can feel it. And then she was like just so, she said like, he sent you to me. Yeah. And all the encounters were like, everyone was just like so activated. They were just willing to help us. Like the first encounter I had was this woman that she even had customers coming to her and she didn't even talk to them. She was just telling me like, okay, like just giving me information, giving me like really like feeling, I could feel she wanted to support. And I felt all the encounters were mainly like that. Like I was just receiving the messages of, like the prompts. And it was just incredible. It was like, even, when I felt the prompt to go to the book fair, in the beginning, it's like I didn't want to share about it because I was like, oh, I was seeing it from the past. Like, oh, that's going to be crowded, a lot of people. But then when I shared about it, because it was like the emotion was stronger. So I really felt it. And even yesterday while we were having lunch, there is this singer that I've been wanting to see for 15 years. And I've never been able to see her live. And she was going to give a concert yesterday night. at the book fair. And where we were having lunch, she was rehearsing right next to where we were. So I was able to hear her singing. And it felt like it was just, like just for us. And at that moment, I just felt how listening and following is for our happiness. It's like it goes beyond what I think happiness could be. I was just feeling a sense of being so embraced. Like even by everyone. Like everything was just a symbol of that love. So even that, I've been wanting to hear her for 15 years, and she was right there just singing for us. And yeah, it just felt like a message of love. And I do feel like it is like this orchestration happening. Like I could just feel how everyone was so activated. And yeah, it was, even we had an encounter with the Urantia book, the booth. They had a booth there, and they were they gave us many different gifts. They gave us books. They gave us the Spanish version of it, the Urantia book. Yeah, they even invited us to be part of their to come as guests to one of their TV shows. And then Greg and Soren joined with Jack, who is in charge of Latin America distribution for the Urantia book. And he was just so happy. He said that he had a calling, that he felt a calling to share with young people. And then he saw everyone coming to the booth at the end of the book fair on Saturday. Everyone was coming to the booth, and he was just like so happy. And then Emilia came with her eyes wide open, and she said, "I'm with them." And he said, "I know," because it was like a recognition. Like both of them were with their eyes like just so sparkly, and he was like so. He was crying, and he said, "This is it. This is it." And he wants to also meet you, David, because he lives in Ohio, right?
Yeah, he lives close to Cincinnati, or has a hub there or something like that. 2 hours to Cincinnati.
So everything was just like we were just. It felt like, just going there to receive the gifts and the prompts. So, I could feel how it is all given, all orchestrated. It's like I feel the activation, and it's like everyone was I was just recognizing that, like we were all like so excited. Yeah, so it was beautiful.
Okay, so the way that I decided to come, or that I ended up coming for the event for the 2 days, was that I had a dream. Wow, this is loud. I had a dream the day before. I think David was asking everyone what their inspiration was, what brought them joy. and Marcella shared about the book fair happening. But that night I had a dream where, in the dream, David was asking everyone, "What is your greatest joy? That brings you joy?" And I couldn't think of anything in the dream. And then we were in the house, my family's house growing up, and Marcella was there. And I looked over and I said, Marcella, sometimes you just have to forget all your worries and just go. And I grabbed her hand, and then we just started moving. And that, to me, was the prompt, like, oh, I'm supposed to go to this. So, and then the event itself was, it felt very, being paired up with Erica felt like a very holy encounter. And we had like opposite ego dynamics going on. So she had lots of experience, but I had zero. So kind of, it was just very healing and beautiful to really connect with her over the 2 days. And and then Urantia, when we came to the Urantia booth, Erica was so lit up, and the woman at the booth gave her a small booklet. And then Erica said, "Oh, wow, that's great." And she gave her the Unwind Your Mind book. "Take this, here you go." And I was like, "What are you doing? You can't just give away our books." But it was like she was feeling the energy with Urantia that day. It was like that booth in particular. And it was like, And then she actually ended up buying the book for this woman at the booth. That she was so inspired. But so I was like, "Oh my God, what's happening? Something's gone wrong. Oh no." But it was very beautiful. We ended up talking about our inner child and getting ice cream. And at the end of the second day, we were just felt like it was all such a gift of just feeling loved and just accepting the love. That's all.
Yeah, I was like adopted to the book fair. It's not really my area, but it was really, really lovely. Especially yesterday, I felt like I had a very, very strong prayer that I wanted it to open my heart and to speak to my heart. And it really felt like all day. It was just that. Like, it was a day where we were speaking about Jesus to everyone. Like, we met with that lady, which was absolutely amazing. And then she saw that book, Jesus, A Gospel of Love. And she said, this speaks to my heart. And she started looking at it, the mystical teachings of Jesus. She saw it, and as well, she felt, this is it. And so that was incredible. The meeting with her was absolutely incredible. And we were there for like more than an hour. 2 hours, really? Wow, it didn't really feel like that at all. Like, we completely lost track of time and space and everything. And like, there were many ideas. I think by looking at everyone that's been working on books, like, there were so many ideas of things we could do, and Marcella could do, but also like advertising and different things. But I think the main thing was, yesterday just feeling all the symbols of Jesus, like everywhere. All the pictures of Jesus and all the saints and mystics. And we also went to another booth that had all the books of the saints. Like, they basically take this very old text and redesign it all, and to appeal the youth. But the designs were beautiful, and I loved it. And we were looking and speaking with them, and they were so passionate about God as well. And they were telling us all their marketing strategies. And we were like, wow, like, all of the ideas that they had were so beautiful, like weekly book club, and they have like a book of the month, and then they have like a community basically that receives this new book every month, and they read it together, and they have prayers and even a playlist to listen to while they're reading. Like, they prepared all this stuff, and it was just so exciting to see, like, how
how like there are no limits really to extend the teachings. And I also felt like when I was in the book fair, because right now the Jesus a Gospel Adult translation was finished by the team that I was working with, and now it's on me like to give it a last look and then give it to Marcela. But in the book fair, I really felt like this is so important. This is so important. This needs to go out. This needs to go out. And then it was like a sea of people that were attending. Like, it was incredible. I haven't seen that amount of people like in ages. I don't know. But just feeling the same, like this message needs to go out. It's so, so important. And yeah, just finding that last lady last night felt like, yeah, she knows and she understands and she wants the same. And that felt like a miracle. So it was just very inspiring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. The first morning was a Saturday morning, like Jessica, Erica, Vicky, and Amelia. They were all coming back. They were just so lit up, like all just bursting ready to share their miracles. And yeah, it really was beautiful to just get out and just, that not only the whole event, though, just a sea of people, just tons and tons of people. There's this whole vibe where everybody was really alive. I know it's all perception, but it's like they're really just hungry for a message and they're wanting to accept and be accepted. There was just, a whole beautiful vibe with the whole place, and just came through with everyone we met. And with Jack, and of course Lalo with this El Cristo S. It was just like the background and the strangers, just slowly just coming in, and just a full recognition that it's a family of the heart. I mean, it's why we're here, but it really was that full experience of watching the heart join, and just so soft and so beautiful, just sharing that heart together and recognizing that together. It was like, that was everything, just right, like, with them. So, it was beautiful to join all together in it too, and be able to share about it, and come to as a team and for lunch and break out again. And then there were moments when all of us were together and like on one person, or was it? It was just fun too. So it was a big flow, big beautiful flow.
There was this feeling, like Greg said, that everyone there was so open. Like they all had a message that they wanted the world to hear, that they wanted to share. And so when we'd approach anyone, I feel like they were so open to hearing us. And I got teamed up with Amelia on Saturday and Yvonne on Sunday, and just to feel, so we went 2 by 2s, like how Jesus sent off, but this feeling so connected in mind and in purpose that, I just felt we were flowing together, and intuitively, we were connected, and we were feeling out, should we go this way or that way? And then we'd both feel it. We were feeling the same guidance. And then once we'd get to someone, we either felt like, hey, it's this person. This person's the one we need to speak to, or they're calling for us, and we feel the connection with them. Or sometimes it'd be we spoke to a distributor at HarperCollins, and he started off by saying, normally I don't give people like you attention or time because I want to work with people that are already established. If I went and I spoke to individuals like you, I wouldn't have any time. But he just kept giving us information and wanting to help us, and he just kept talking to us. And the other thing that I witnessed is that when one of us felt activated to speak, the other one felt activated to do something else, and it was just such a flow. We felt like such a team. We felt spirit working through us, and
And then also just, especially because it was so crowded and there's so much people around us, like I felt like I didn't even get bothered or disturbed by that because I was just connected with my partner, and that was it. It was just the two of us. It was just the two of us, and everything else was like a backdrop. Like until we were to meet someone, it would either sparkle or shine or stand out, and then we'd go to it. Yeah, and that was amazing. I really love that experience. Yeah, and there's a lot of healing. Like we got to stop and share if we felt a block or we felt like any emotions coming up. We'd share it with each other, release it, and then move on and flow. And then started to get really attuned with, hey, this doesn't feel good, and so let's turn this way. And yeah, that felt better. Like to really feel the guidance together. We're feeling the same thing. Yeah. And maybe there's one thing I want to share too that, yeah, I've always had this dream of, well, what the UN represents, which is like equality and just reaching the whole world and everyone like having access to, like everyone's equal. And I love what they represent. And so this was on Sunday, Yvonne and I were walking, and all of a sudden, like we both felt heavy walking this way. So, okay, let's turn the other way. All of a sudden I turned the other way, and the UN booth for me was like lit up. So then I decided, Yvonne, like I really had a dream with this, like since childhood, and we went into the booth. And then, yeah, I just had a profound moment there of such gratitude and like kind of seeing how my whole life, like, yeah, God has allowed me to share and express and like be creative and at the same time like live what's in my heart. And in that moment, I just felt like everything just culminated, and I felt like he's allowing me to do what I've always wanted, which is like to have everyone be with me, like to feel the whole world with me, and that everyone's equal. And that the fact that we're doing this healing work, like before I wanted to do it in form and I wanted to make a difference in form or whatever way I could. But now I'm doing it in mind, and like the healing that I'm doing, everyone's coming with me, everyone's healing with me. And I just felt so much gratitude for where I'm at in this path. And yeah. Yeah, I broke down in the UN, but but yeah, I'm so grateful for this experience. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that it just warms my heart to hear it, because we've seen these opportunities come to us in large Course in Miracles conferences and, large concerts. Sometimes it's very large. One time I was going to Houston, Texas, and I had a few people traveling with me, but one of the men was a gentleman who was just praying and praying and praying to have his heart opened, and I just was praying when I was down there staying at his house with a couple of friends of mine, and then I said, I was really praying what would be helpful, and Jesus said, go to eBay and purchase front row seats at a big giant concert in Houston to Jackie Velasquez. So I went in and I bought the tickets, I think maybe 4 tickets, and I had some friends with me, and one of them was Resta, who has received all this 270 songs from the angels. And when we got to the concert, she was very prayerful, kind of a quiet mystic who received all this music, but she just was overwhelmed with the crowd and the energy. And she just looked at me and she said, I'm not going in there. I am not going in there. Whatever, you just go ahead. I'll just sit outside on the grass or something and enjoy the concert. But she was totally overwhelmed. And then I think Kathy, was with me, and I said, yeah, and this guy, he said, okay, yeah, I'm going. I need to heal. And so we went in there, and she just was pouring out. It was just such a deep presence of God's love at this live outdoor concert. And then I felt, he was sitting next to me, that he was just going through so much and just calling out for so much help. And at some point he just got up and he just laid his head and shoulders and his top part of his body over onto the stage at this big concert, and it was like laying there and praying, and then Jackie was singing a song. She saw him, so she came over and she just kind of sang over him and prayed over him while he was there, and I could feel all this love and energy going through. But yeah, I think we're all activated to shine our light, and the opportunities come, and then you can feel it when they come. I guess Melly and Urpi had the same experience at the UCDM Universal Conference, kind of going down, being paired up, just like you were talking about, and Jessica was talking about, paired up and drawn to extend. And we've had that in so many different opportunities with these big 500-person Course in Miracles conferences that we went to, a number of those. There was one year too, I believe it was around 2010, where we did an audio-visual presentation. I think we showed maybe a movie clip, and Helena Unison got to sing a song. We were really showing our media, how we could use media. I don't think the conference had ever had anything like a multimedia presentation. But yeah, it feels like that's what we're on the cusp of right now, is that it's huge. Everything we do with audios, with books, with websites, audiobooks, ebooks. We have a lot of different websites. We have lots of different ways of using media, which is just communication, to shine the light. And then people show up to watch it, to read it, to listen to it. And that's a communication function. And I feel we have a huge communication function. That is the purpose of the body. If you can imagine everything you've ever learned about this world, about geography, about your family tree, your lineage, if you learned about science, or you learned about the politics or everything, it's like everything you've ever learned, and it's like the Holy Spirit's presence comes upon your mind, and is basically saying, now, I want you to forget all that, and I know you don't understand what that means, but I want you to give it to me to use for the purpose of forgiveness. Because that is the only purpose that unifies us. That is the only purpose that the world has, is forgiveness. And forgiveness could be defined most simply as seeing the false as false. So that doesn't have any recognition on a broad scale, because people are like, what do you mean seeing the false as false? That's the point of everything, to see the false as false. But it has to be that your mind goes into it from a place of being activated and used by the Holy Spirit, using everything that was learned for a different purpose, a purpose that's entirely different. Like, for example, the body, ego made the body. Jesus, at one point in the Course, says the body, was made as a symbol of separation. So it's like a crowning jewel in the ego's make-believe fictitious world. But again, if you start to say, well, okay, whatever I've learned about the body, I have to just be willing for a moment to pause and just say, okay, here, I give it all to you. Because Jesus is teaching us that the Holy Spirit can transform special relationships into holy relationship, and can transform something like the body into a learning device and a means of communication. And with all the seeming learned knowledge we have about the body in terms of its autonomy and the parts of it and what's inside of it and how it works, the whole medical model is pretty much based on on the analysis of the body and the body systems. And basically what Jesus is saying is, no, none of that has any use whatsoever, but it is a learning device. And if you give yourself over to the Holy Spirit, you can start to see it as a learning device and nothing more. It's just a learning device for bringing you home, for waking you up. It doesn't have a value. He talks about it in a lot of different ways. He says, your problem is the way you look upon the body, so you see the body as an end, and the body is not an end. And what does he mean by you see the body as an end? You see the body as the receptor of all the pleasures and conveniences and comforts and joys. The question is, how do you feel? That question is filtered through the mind every day by the ego, and it's basically saying pleasures, conveniences, comforts, all those are the good things, and the recipient of those good things is the body. And Jesus comes in and says, that's completely reversed. The only reason you even seem to be able to enjoy the body is because you believe it's an end. And it's not. It's not an end. It's not an end. It is not a goal. And if Jesus, you see him emphasize it over and over, but it goes 180 degrees. It goes completely opposite of what the world would call the purpose of life is the betterment of the body. And Jesus is saying it cannot be bettered. The Holy Spirit knows it's just neutral, and the best you can hope to see it is as a learning device, as a means that can be used by the Holy Spirit to focus on your mind. Like Vicky was sharing, you start to feel activated in the mind, you start to see all healing is in the mind, and that the betterment of the body, it's not a negative goal, it's an impossible goal. The body is not an end. The mind is asleep, and the mind needs to wake up, so the mind is in need of healing, and the body is just a symbol among symbols that can be used for that healing. But it's not an end. And also with linear time, there's all these goals that are placed for the body, the betterment of the body, better situations, better living circumstances. It's beautiful that you went down to this giant book fair because you could feel the buzz and the energy of going there, and the vibe to extend, is probably just palpable. Like it's like a beating heart. Like, wow, ooh, I would like to live in this energy. It's very, very strong, and that's why the majority of what seems to be our earthly ministry has been going out. It's been so much travel around and around and around the world, so many invitations. He says the mind that's willing to communicate attracts communication, and he's still talking at a mind level. If your mind is willing to communicate, it will attract communication. You'll attract mighty companions, you'll attract symbols of communication, and that's one thing that this book fair was all these symbols of willingness to communicate and be communicated to. So it's like a feast for the mind, a mind that wants to extend, that wants to shine, and then you go, wow, whoa, what is this? And really it's just like, it's really saying yes to the plan. It's saying yes to the calling. It's getting completely activated. And when you give yourself over to it completely, to that calling, then things like place and space and time start to fade in awareness. Like Anna was saying, how long was that meeting? 2 hours? 2 hours, you couldn't even believe that meeting would last 2 hours, but because you do lose track of the passage of time when you go into that calling. It's good to lose track of the passage of time. Jesus even has a meditation, I think it's in the workbook, where he says, time drifts by without its touch upon us. Almost like you're imagining yourself laying underwater in a little stream, and then there's leaves that the stream is carrying, and you're laying at the bottom of the stream, and you're just watching with wonderment as the leaves are passing by. You just watch them. Time drifts by without its touch upon us. Many of us have had the same experience when we were children. We were playing. We lost track of time. We didn't know what time it was until we heard, "Come on, time for lunch," or "It's time for you to clean up," or there was some time phrase that was kind of coming to interrupt the play of just play, 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 glee, 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 joy. It's time for lunch. What? What? Where did that come from? Time was not a focus. And then for the ego, time also is seen as something that's very important, but it's basically being used as a way to perpetuate the ego. It made up linear time. So its own version of time is all made up for the purpose of hiding the ego, of hiding the little puff of nothingness that made it up. There is no past, present, and future in eternity. Jesus, at one point in the Course, he actually Jesus uses the word joke. Joke. He says it's a joke to think that time can come to circumvent eternity. The one time when he's emphasizing joke, he's saying it's a joke to think that time can come to circumvent eternity. And that he's basically saying is your only purpose is to wake up and remember eternity. So for us, we're in that place of giving ourselves so fully over to this calling and this activation that we don't give a thought. We take no thought for what we should wear, what we should eat. We take no thought for the specifics, as the specifics seem to just take care of themselves. You went down there as a team, you paired up, okay, you're going there, you're going there, and then you get into this experience of just going to share and extend, and that's the primary thing. And so, yeah, I think I am going to Cincinnati, so maybe somebody could talk to Jack and arrange something there. That would be fun to meet with Jack. And this Layla, maybe later this week I can be on a Zoom call with her. But you start to see that even the roles that seem so important with this personality identity, the roles are only to be given and used by the Holy Spirit. The roles don't mean anything of themselves, but when the roles are given and you're connected and you're fulfilling the role, even if it's a specific encounter with a particular booth, the Urantia booth or the UN booth, or going to a particular table, it's like an assignment. And in one sense, you have like a temporary role to just go and fulfill that assignment. And then you're opening for God's will. Pain and pleasure are of the ego, but then Jesus never leaves it at the negative. He always swings it around. So he says, all real pleasure comes from doing God's will. You see how he always pulls it up into what it really is for. He doesn't leave it with, don't do this. I was just reading that section today in the Lessons of the Holy Spirit, but he said you can become quite frightened if you're told what not to do. So therefore, I tell you, do only that. He's offering the instructions. He's offering the guidance. He's saying, here, just follow me and do only that. Then you don't drift off into detours of fear. You don't drift off into detours of analysis, trying to analyze or figure out what should I do, because he knows that when you drift off in that direction, you will try to analyze what to do based on your past learning, and you will be wrong, no matter what you decide, because the past is over and gone. It's not active. It's not really a factor. You can't really helpfully follow the past learning, because the past learning is guilt. The past learning is shame. The past learning is doubt. The past learning is fear. How is that helpful? How is it ever helpful to follow past learning? It's present inspiration. Present inspiration. And that has to become like a habit where you just say, okay, present inspiration, what is it right now? What is it for me right now? The ego say, that's so simple. What do you mean? What is it right now? You are just turning dumb and gullible? No, it's not. It's open and willing. What is it for me right now? And then that activation just carries you into whatever you're to say, to do. I feel like, with the publications and the distributions, we've kind of gone our way with following the guidance with publications and translations and so forth. But I think now we're ready to really be guided and led in terms of the distributions. The movie that I will show tonight, you might say it's two brothers coming together to join together to make an album in rural Washington State, and yet even with this great collaboration and this great vinyl album, and even boxes of pressed copies of this vinyl album, they had no idea of distribution. And so these vinyl albums are just going to sit in the living room, sit in the house, and eventually they get discovered, and that's going to bring up all kinds of repressed shame, repressed doubt, all the unconscious stuff that is meant to be washed away through miracles. In our case, distribution. We are ready for some distribution. What was this? Kirsten said I invented a new word, a sniglet, the other day, and I was just, in my conversations, I just carried on, and she said, you just came up with another word. What was the word? Revelationize. That fits in with distribution. Revelationize. I was like, oh, that sounds good. I like that word. But I was unaware that I even said it. I was kind of in the experience of it. She said, you just said revelationize. I said, okay. But imagine having that be underneath the joy that you're extending, revelationized. Really, the revelation is, Jesus tells us in the Course, is unspeakable. Revelation is so intensely intimate with the Creator that it's not transferable to people. It's not something that's between people. It's not something that has anything to do with people. It's a direct communion experience with God, with the Creator, and therefore it's unspeakable, and you can't transfer it because it's not meant to be transferred. It's a direct experience. It's an experience of light. And I think when we go into our purpose so fully, then we prepare our mind, we open our mind to the revelatory experience. And that is, again, washing away all of our past ideas of what things mean and what they're for. You have to start to see that if you start to look at the goals that you've had in your life that were based on the past, you can start to realize that they were all ego goals, that none of them were in alignment with the Creator, that all goals of time, all goals of the body and betterment of the body, all goals of achieving something or accumulating something or owning something, which in this world seem to be quite natural. Those are natural goals. What are your goals in life? People aren't saying, what are your goals in eternal life? They're saying, what are your goals on life on earth? But Jesus is teaching us there is no life on earth, that all life is of God. There's even a workbook lesson where he says, you believe you have a love for this, a different love for this, another love for that. All love is of God, and there is no other. There is only one kind of love, and there is no other. There aren't different kinds of love. That's a belief, that there are different kinds of love. It's again, just like Shakespeare said, much ado about nothing. It's the ego playing with the imagination and even believing that it can invent different kinds of love when there aren't. There's only God's love, and there's nothing else. So the journey as you go along, what you can see is that what seems to be linear time and seems to be this world is basically saying no to the calling. Like everyone has a calling in their heart. And what seems to be linear time is simply saying no to that calling. And saying yes to that calling is really an invitation to the holy instant. It's an invitation to the present moment, which has been glossed over by the ego, which the ego teaches is nothing. It will try to dismiss the present moment because it's basically the undoing of the ego. And to me, that's what all the saints and mystics were doing. They had to go through a process of starting to realize that they had many goals, and that those many goals never did bring lasting happiness. Maybe there were fleeting little moments of, oh, I'm glad I got this, or I'm glad I got that, or I'm glad I did this, or that was on my bucket list, so I can check another thing off my bucket list. But that's not really the purpose for us. The purpose is to shine and share and extend. And Shakespeare had it right, to be or not to be. That's basically what the decision is every moment. Am I going to be as God created me, or am I going to play the not to be game? Which involves stress, which involves strain, which involves misuse of the body. Jesus is not telling us to deny the body from our experience, because our mind was used in the making of the body. So he says if you try to just deny the body, you're denying also the power of your mind to make it. And if you deny the power of your mind, then you really have gone off on your own. Because at one point he says in the Course, you are mind, holy mind, WHOLLY, purely mind. You are mind, holy mind, purely mind. When you are aware of your mind, your body is gone from your self-concept, and when you are aware of your body, your mind is gone from your self-concept. Another fancy way of saying what he said in the Bible, that which is born of the flesh is flesh, that which is born of the spirit is spirit. And never the twain shall meet. I've gone to mind, body, spirit festivals where I've gone to near-death experience booths and looked at, okay, what's this, tarot cards? What have you got going over here? You go there, but Jesus says that's an unnatural collection of words, mind, body, and spirit, because they're not equally real. Why not focus on the real and let go of the unreal? And so he's not asking us to try to mix the world with spirit. He's basically saying, if you would know the spirit, you have to put your full attention on it. If you would know the kingdom of heaven, you must put your full attention on it. That also means pulling your attention away from that which is not, which is just projections, just fantasies. Is there a meeting point between fantasy and reality? Is there a meeting point between imagination and spirit? No, Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. The only thing we can say is that the only thing that would be helpful with regard to this world of imagination and fantasy is what serves your will. In other words, saying to the Holy Spirit, what would you have me do? How would you use this fictitious world of symbols and images? But that means that you can't really have a goal for an outcome in the world, because outcomes weren't created by God. None of them. When Jesus speaks of outcome, if you said, what is the outcome? He would say, joy. What is the outcome? Peace. What is the outcome? Love. You see, those are not outcomes like a form outcome. There is no way that an outcome can be an either or, because love and peace and joy are not an either or experience. It's really a release of the either or. You don't have to be concerned about being here or there, because here and there are both the same. So there's no point in trying to figure out which is better. And that's a distraction when we do think my life would be better if I was somewhere else, or things would be better if things looked differently. Oh, I would have been so much happier when I was 4 years old if the outcome had gone the other way, whatever that is, a parent leaving or a child dying or whatever it seems to be. So I feel like we're in a point of just excitement right now, because there's a lot of things shifting in the ministry, but I would just say it's just kind of we're all just coming into alignment in a very full and true way with our calling. We're coming home through the calling. We're coming into alignment. And you can feel the buzz and the energy, even going down to that book festival, and even with it's just, what is it, a couple days away, we're doing some configurations of the houses. That's all for the good. That's just all for a swirl, to come deeper into the synergy, deeper into the calling, deeper into the connectedness, and then just shine your light from that place. It's always fun, I think, going out. The things that you may feel you're guided to do, as part of the ministry, it's one thing to be guided to do something within your household, but the only thing is that, when we talk even about living spaces, Jesus wants us to live in our mind, which is where we do live, and he doesn't want us to start to get associated with even particular places. You go to a big book fair like that, and there's thousands of people, and it's a big swirl of energy, and you can feel it there. But I remember many years ago when I was guided to read this book by Khalil Gibran called The Prophet. And he was talking about houses. I think Almitras said to him, speak to us of houses. And he basically was saying, when you build your house, build a bower in the wilderness. That's an interesting first response from the prophet. A bower in the wilderness, meaning build yourself something that can be used easily by the Spirit. He wasn't talking about skyscrapers. Khalil Gibran was not saying go and live in a skyscraper in a big city. He actually said, in terms of cities, basically he says in that book, in their fear, your forefathers gathered you too close together. That's his commentary on cities. In their fear, your forefathers gathered you too close together. It's the sense that cities, villages and then cities, arose out of what was it underneath that brought about the cities? It was the belief in economics. Without the belief in reciprocity in economics, there's no need for cities. You see, in their fear, your forefathers gathered you too close together. If you look at all the major cities and then you hold them up to something else in time, like let's say the Essenes. What do we know about the Essenes? They lived in the desert. They were a little cloistered community devoted to God who lived in the desert and who didn't want things of this world. They wanted to focus their mind solely on God. There's another group called the Desert Fathers, people have had glimpses of the Desert Fathers, but the reason they're not so well known in history is because they weren't into the laws and the rules of this world. That's why nobody knows about them. Nobody cared to even write a book, put them in a book. You have to really search long and hard to read about the Desert Fathers because they didn't care about the world. They lived such lives of devotion to God and giving their minds over to God that they took their attention away from the timeline, from the world. That is our calling. And we can do that, and we can still use the symbols of the world, like books and book fairs, to, as Pocahontas said, paint with all the colors of the wind. Think of your mind painting with all the colors of the wind. Think of the freedom, the expansiveness of going into that sharing and extending. And in the end, just getting so merged in that you don't really feel there's a person extending anymore. You lose track of the person. You lose track of that. You lose track of everything else. You go into it. In a sense, we could say that God extends God, and that the completion of God extending is without question. That is reality, is God extending, or we'll say light extending. That's reality. But if the extension of God is blocked in awareness, then that's what we would call the ego. That's to be unaware of the extension of love and light is what ego is. So the ego is a block. And then the purpose of spiritual awakening and receiving your calling is to let the spirit remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Byron Katie, even though she doesn't always talk about God or spirit, but she'll just, I think she wrote a book, Loving What Is. What is what is. What is now. And if you're in love with what is, then you could care less about what was or what will be. If you love what is, you could care less about what was or what will be. That's the focal point. That's where the energy is. It's just being in this moment, in the joy of this moment. So I feel like that's it. So part of these Chautauquas also are, and then with all the shifts of configurations, and new things are coming every day. New things are coming every week. I think it was only, a few days ago when I woke up and I heard there was to be like 5 summits. And I came to the table and JP said, "Summit? Is that like a big meeting?" I said, "Yes, 5 summits." So we had one right away. What day was that? Was that Saturday? That was Saturday. It was Saturday. I came in there. I said, "Yeah, this is the first summit." Yeah, and the first summit was it was strawberry festival. That was the continuation of. We had a full summit on Saturday morning. We had a full summit. We had a full summit. Because we talked about in December we would start the thing with the strawberry idea, and then it just came as a summit, and then I think on, was it Friday, there's a AI summit at the Halo Room at 10 a.m. Starts at 10 a.m. And then, probably in the weekend or next week we'll have. That's a continuation of the first summit. Yeah, we're going to QDS to talk about the Strawberry Festival. But they're just coming, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the Chautauquas, I feel, are very practical talks and interactions, because when the summits come, or when the guidance comes, when the downloads come, then we don't delay. We go immediately. When I got the summit idea, I said, let's have number 1 right now. And then that's how swiftly it is, though. But that's the way the guidance works. It's very swift. It's not something you just kind of try to put on a schedule, but it's swift. It comes. And then oftentimes there's ego resistances, reactions, emotions, all kinds of things that come. Because it's, in one sense, the really going deep into your call is reorganizing or reordering perception. And in one sense, the ego doesn't want its private, little, narrow perception of the world. It doesn't want it interrupted. It calls its narrow, little perception of the world the status quo. And there's always a fear of disruption of the status quo. What's happening? What's changing? It brings up fear. The first change that was ever experienced by the sleeping mind was the belief in separation. And so now every change, even in the correction, seems to bring up fear. So it's not like something's going wrong when the fears come up. It's just that the ego is not happy with what's going on. Its interpretation is being washed away. It's false evidence appearing real. Fear, its acronym, is being rinsed away. So I think that these Chautauquas can be very practical, because if there's fears that are coming up, or there's doubt, or there's anger or anything, it's just good to remember that everything is working together for the good, and everything is coming for the awakening of the mind. And it's just that the mind can get quite attached to, we'll call it the status quo, where it has some sense of perception that it wants to try to cling to or hold on to. And then the guidance can come in, and to the ego it's inconvenient, guidance is disruptive, guidance is pulling you out of the norm. It's pulling you out of complacency. That's probably one of the biggest defenses that the ego has to the holy instant, is complacency, familiarity. You start to get familiar with particular surroundings, familiar with particular people, and then you go to a book fair and it's like this big swirl of energy and thousands of people, and then you're just going, I like this. Initially, Marcella was thinking, oh no, book fair, I'm not into big crowds, that's not my idea of a date with Soren. I can think of a lot of other things I'd rather do on a date with Soren than go and be with thousands and thousands of people in Guadalajara. But the spirit disrupts the complacency. It disrupts the status quo. It disrupts what the ego calls normal life. But there is nothing normal about this world, and there never will be. People would say, when you do the Course, just always remember to act normal and be normal. And I would always say, Really? Follow the teachings of Jesus and you're going to be normal? I don't know how you put those together. In fact, I would say I think Jesus was the most unnormal person in human history. I would make the case that Jesus was the most unnormal person. He did not fit in any of the boxes. He blew the lid off of every single box. And he lived an expression that showed that he was basically not of this world. What if you lived your life where in the end, if they put the epitaph on your gravestone, this was the most unnormal. Yvonne was the most unnormal woman. Wouldn't you love it to be thought of that way as unnormal? Because the spirit doesn't really fit into the boxes of this world. It's unconditional. It's agape love. It doesn't fit. Jesus even said, don't put new wine in old wineskins, meaning don't try to fit the new wine of the Spirit into the old wineskins of the past. He was just teaching us it's okay to let go of the past. It's okay to be guided in the present moment. It's really more than okay. It's wonderful to be guided in the present moment, but we have to discover that for ourselves. We can't just take it because somebody told us. So that's been my joy, has just been to pray, listen, and follow, and feel the joy, the consistent joy that comes from that. A guided life, a guided state of mind, to feel the joy of that. And then there's no comparison, too. You are freed of the weight of comparison. You don't have to try to bounce it off of something in the world. If you're happy, the whole world's happy, because there is no world apart from mind. That's what that song is. When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. When you're laughing, the whole world laughs with you, because the world's not apart from you. Your identity is everything, and then the world is only a reflection based on your identification. Identify with the body or the person, and that's very contracted. It's very limited. It's very fearful to be identified with something that you're not. But we have to let it pour through us. So I think that if we have some time here, we can open it up if there's feelings, or if you feel there's any kind of contractions that you've noticed, or limits that you've noticed, or any kind of a thought like, oh, I wish something was different, or there's a sense of unfulfillment. Those are emotions to pay attention to, because they're giving us a signal to turn us back to our inner calling. Every time we feel contracted, it's like looking for the fulfillment in something where there is no fulfillment, looking for fulfillment in a ghost. And Jesus is trying to save us time, saying, don't look there. It's not there. Don't look outside yourself for this, because it's not there. You won't find it outside. You won't find it in the world. And tonight's movie is good because the title of the movie is Dreamin' Wild. And that's one of those default beliefs that seem to be taken for granted. When I was growing up, I would hear people say, follow your dreams. And I did, but I was never satisfied, I guess, following my dreams. I always was left with this feeling like, what's next? There must be something more. Because it's almost like this world is, we'll call it dreamland, and it's been presented to us in a very positive way. Good, you're now in dreamland, and in dreamland you can follow your dreams. And Jesus says, happy dreams come true, not because they're dreams, but because they're happy. oh, maybe this whole dreamland is to find true happiness, and maybe we can't find it in the dreams. No matter how many we achieve, no matter how many we tick off, oh, I got that one, that this world is not like a keychain where you just keep collecting the keys and then you finally get the key to open the magic door. But in this movie, we have had two teenagers that are kind of in the woods, and their dad builds them a music studio, and they follow their dreams, their love of music, and they make an amazing album. But that's never the end. There aren't any endings in Dreamland, because Jesus says every time, you may have noticed that every time you fulfill one of your goals in this world, it has not satisfied you, and thus the ego is forced to present more alternatives to chase. It's all about, this world is all about chasing dreams. Chasing dreams. And when you achieve some of them, you have this feeling like, is that all there is? It has not satisfied you. This movie is good for that, because you can start to see that it's a haunting, mesmerizing pursuit to pursue dreams. And when Jesus said, seek and you shall find, he wasn't talking about dreams. And when Jesus says knock and the door shall be opened, he wasn't talking about dreams. There's something more beyond the dreams. And that's disillusioning. If you've come to Dreamland and you're like, I got my chance. Finally, I waited in line a long time to come to Dreamland, and now I'm going to make the best of it and really go for it. I'm going to fulfill my dreams. But yeah, it's not in the fulfillment of specific dreams. It's in the awareness of dreaming, that frees us for what's next, for remembrance of God, awareness of dreaming. So that will come to the mind that's identified with the body and the person. There will be disappointments. There will be seemingly shattered dreams. There will be seemingly shattered expectations, heartbreaks. It's been spoken about by a lot of poets and writers. Shakespeare, a lot of them have talked about this sense of unfulfillment, or this sense of somehow that the field of dreams and Dreamland it's like a computer program that's a closed system. It's a closed system. As long as you believe in it, you believe in endings. Like he says in Workbook Lesson 300, everyone who comes here, without exception, comes for the purpose of suffering and dying. That's why you come to Dreamland. That's the purpose. Suffer and die. And that's it. So that's good. Then you can start to say, well, that was the purpose for coming. Yeah. And then the good news is only an instant does this world endure. So it's like you can fixate your mind on that dark thought of suffering and death, or the alternative. I mean, that's it. The range is set. I'm either into resurrection or I'm into suffering and death. And that's it. There's nothing in between. Only an instant does this world endure. You can rejoice that it's over and gone, or you can believe that you're in it and suffer and die. That's the consequences of believing in dreamland. Yeah, it's very, very, very direct. So this is also, I would say, this is the entry point into mysticism. Yeah, that was the commonality with the mystics and saints. God. I choose God. I choose to devote my mind to God. And the relief, the instant relief that comes with that thought. It's not a future relief, it's an instant relief. I'm all yours, God. I could listen to gospel hymns and music of saying yes to God, and I'm all yours, God, and I come to you, God. I lay myself down before you, God. You could just listen to these hymns of happiness. They really are just hymns of happiness, of just devotion to God. That's what mysticism is. It's just a devotion to God. From a deep experience, not from a concept of the word, of just, I will repeat the word 500 times today. It's an actual experience in your heart. So, with that good news,
Hi, David.
Hi.
This is something I've been thinking about lately. So I know this path is, we talk about a bottom-up approach and to give up everything that or let go of everything that's in the way of experiencing God's love. But then it seems to me there's a lot of lessons as well that are also kind of pointing towards accept the atonement, which to me seems not quite, that seems kind of more like that's the top. So I've had a couple of these kind of, is the microphone topped up? Okay, well there it is. Maybe I'm not talking into the right spot. Okay. So I've had some light experiences where my mind got completely blown, and I'm kind of wondering if somehow there's something going on in my mind where I'm not, because I would think, well, if the Spirit has given me that experience, is there a way that I feel like I'm not using it because I forget? Because there was no doubt in my mind, these were experiences where every prayer ever prayed was answered, and it was all very clear. I'm not a person. I'm in the light. I'm part of eternity, and but I can't imagine there being anything more than what I experienced. And so and there's a judgment in my mind because I had to seemingly take a substance in order to have that experience. So there's a tainted sort of idea in my mind because it happened that way. But I also recognize that if it had happened spontaneously, I think it would have been too scary for me. I would have had to been probably hospitalized, and that's what it felt, because that's just how intense it felt, maybe to the ego. But I guess my question is if it's helpful to just keep remembering, oh yeah, I had that experience, as to bring that into the correction or in my mind, when I'm bringing up the stuff that I come back, oh, that's what, if I have this, oh, I had this experience, oh yeah, and kind of come back to that, what seems to be a memory, but to kind of get into practice of resting in that. So I'm kind of wondering if I'm not appreciating enough the experience that I've had, and that it would be helpful to keep remembering.
Yeah, I think you can think of that experience you had as like a glimpse, and glimpse, we have to admit, a glimpse is helpful. The ego will try to take the glimpse and put it on the timeline, which is not the glimpse anymore, because the glimpse is never on the timeline. You know, sometimes people have a big glimpse, and then I've had people I've met say, "Oh, I had a glimpse when I was 13 years old or when I was 22 years old, and I've been beating myself up ever since, trying to get it back." It's like a Barry Manilow song. I've been up, down, trying to get the feeling again. I've tried, trying to get the feeling, the one that made me shiver. You know, it's a whole song. It's Barry Manilow's song. And people do this spiritually. They have the glimpse, and then they're always trying to get the feeling again. Oh, it was unspeakable. And woe is me, because now it's gone and I can't get it back. But with the atonement is the first miracle, the last miracle, and all the miracles in between, in the sense that the atonement is an experience that transcends, we'll say, the levels of perception. And the problem is the belief in levels of perception. It's what Jesus calls level confusion. You know, when you're in your right mind, which is what the glimpse is all about, when you're in your right mind, everything is perfect. Right-minded seeing can see only perfection. When you're above the battleground, when you're in the glimpse, it's all perfect, it always was perfect, it always will be perfect. There's nowhere to go, there's nothing to change, there's nothing to fix, it's just, you just are in full joy and appreciation. But the belief in levels of need is what really requires a solution that is making the correction from the bottom up. And so this approach with the Course in Miracles and Jesus is not a top-down approach, because, you know, there is no top and bottom in that glimpse, because there aren't any levels. And so it's the belief in these levels of needs that generates what seems like to be the illusion of the human experience. But the Beatles had it, you know, all you need is love. Jesus says you have but one need, and that's love. That's to know who you are, and there are no other needs. But the ego generates a perception of a hierarchy of illusions, or of levels of need, and then that's a conundrum. I mean, over time I've talked to a number of you, we've had a good heart-to-heart talks about things, but when we have our one-to-one talks, usually what comes up is the levels of need. Whether we're talking financial needs, emotional needs, sexual needs, whether we're talking needs for greater use of one's skills and abilities, or the need to be recognized, or whatever. It's just a levels of need problem, and that's why the Holy Spirit has to use miracles to convince the mind that it has no needs, that it is abundant. That was the word that Lisa heard at the beginning, abundant. She said, it sounds so good, abundant, abundant. And so she was like, you were set on a discovery to find that abundance.
It was more about an experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't really about form.
No.
Like, I loved the experience.
The word represented something fulfilled.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the word had a vibration of reality or something. Like
Abundant. Abundant is who you are, yeah. And then the ego is the belief in lack. So that belief in lack is projected out and splintered into a bunch of different levels. And none of those levels that are projected from that belief in lack, we talk about the psychic level or the emotional level, we talk about the interpersonal level, we talk about the community level, the level of the country or the level of the world. But all of those are artificial levels. And Jesus tells us, in heaven, there's only light. And so there are no levels. It's just all oneness. Oneness doesn't have levels. There's not parts of oneness to be put and arranged into levels. In terms of this world, there are three presences that are talked about in the Course, and that's the Holy Trinity. The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, for anybody who's been raised in Christianity. And Jesus says, only with the Trinity do the levels not conflict. That's the only three where there's no conflict. So in heaven it's just one, and then the three are more a metaphor for coming back to that one. The Creator, the creation, the Christ, and then the Holy Spirit, which is the bridge, helping the Christ remember the Christ as a creation of God. So those are symbolic, and they're talked about as three, Holy Trinity, but then he says, only in the Holy Trinity do the levels not conflict. That must mean that everything else that's levels conflicts, if that's the only three that don't conflict. So that must mean that it's a perceptual problem of perceiving different levels that are distinctly different from each other is the problem. The perception of levels is the problem. You can't know who you are with that faulty perception of levels, and that faulty perception of levels comes from lack. So if you are saying, I'm flying back to Canada on the 20th, I have a business bankruptcy that I have to deal with, there we go, we're dealing with the financial level of Richard. and then with your apartment, I think did you sell that cute little van that you had? No? Still have that? You know, a little homemade van. There's all these little things. Or we had a lunch with Erica, and she was like saying, well, I go back to Miami, but then I'm married, I have a 4-year-old son. I would like to move to Ocala and live in the woods, but there's this thing of a house and a mortgage, and you see the talk is based on the belief in the levels, and the way that the belief in levels is solved is one miracle at a time. That's how we work from the bottom up, at letting Jesus and the Holy Spirit direct the way. All we have to do is keep our eye on the prize. And the prize is God. The prize is the Creator. And then we have to have faith that it's all part of a prearranged plan, and that everyone we're supposed to meet, everything we're supposed to do, everything we're supposed to fulfill in the plan is part of a prearranged plan that we don't see that it's prearranged. We still think we're making the steps. And Jesus is with us laughing, going, come back here. You should see my view. This is old news. You're fretting over old news. You're still nervous about this, and you're afraid of this and this and this. But he says we're looking back from a place where the world has ended. Imagine that we make it once again. We're imagining that we're taking steps that we've already taken. Thankfully, they're already taken. It's a done deal. It's a completely done deal. It's a completely sealed and done deal, arriving at perfect innocence. And that's the faith that we have, even while we're just taking whatever step comes our way, seemingly sorting out something that needs to be sorted, or, just Daisy's, we've got to go back to final step with a divorce process. You signed that.
Yeah, but something has to do with the house on my ex-husband's name.
Yes. And it's a few months away. It's 4 months away or something. Yeah. So it's nice to think of it as a done deal and, just taking your steps and watching it, like watching it play out. And that really is what the miracle does. The miracle is like a glimpse, a flash of just feeling the freedom of just seeing the false as false. And then the atonement is like a final, the last unanswered question. Do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth? Do I want to see what I denied? What did I deny? What did I deny, Jesus? That I'm doing this. He's like, just the vision of Christ. That's all. Do I want to see what I denied, the vision of Christ, truth seeing, spiritual lie, pure light, revelatory? Do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth? That's the last unanswered questions. And the 4 questions, he's saying, you can change your mind anytime you want with the first 3, but not the last one. Do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth? That's when you're really saying, only you, God. Meaning, only you love, only you light. And in that, there are levels of need in that. The levels of need vanish. And we're really never there, but while you believe in them, you have to be practical. That's why I always say Jesus is so practical. When you pray for guidance, He will tell you, take the next step. And that's what you've been doing, Richard. You've been taking your steps, and it's a little dance. It's like Utah, Canada, ooh, a little Mexico rubbed in there, Utah, Mexico, Canada. You're just, it's just taking the steps that feel guided, that feel helpful, that feel important. You just take them one step at a time. And that's all you can do. That's all we can do, is just take it one step at a time. So, yeah. And just think of the glimpse as just a soft reminder that's of that light that's calling you. Yeah. Don't even try to put it on the timeline, because ego will try to make a mess. Try to generate some guilt out of that glimpse. Yeah. Thank you.